Jim and Bill, It's Another Day podcast has been on the air just over 3 years. We started our fourth year in December. Some people have asked, how many people do you think you reach? Well, here's what Variety said.
Variety reported that the podcast had reached 427 million downloads.
427 million downloads. Oh, and by the way, that figure was globally and for the year ending in 2024. I wonder where we are now. For those who found us and made us a part of your day, thank you. Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Happy Monday. Of course, the weekend with the hit squad from the left has been taking place. Always on the weekend.
Yes.
They can do nothing.
Well, you know, it's easier to
negative stuff.
It's easier to get through all this news, Bill, with a good cup of coffee in your hand. You know that.
This is true.
That's why we would recommend highly that you try our brand of coffee, Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. I had to think about it for a second. No, it's just early, friends. It's, we put the clock ahead and stuff, lost an hour. It still hasn't, I haven't caught up to it yet. Say again?
What? Who?
What?
It hasn't set in yet.
No, It hasn't. Oh, my gosh. I don't know how I did. For years, we did this in broadcasting. The tough thing was if you worked the overnight shift and they added an hour to the show, in the fall. It was like, in the springtime, it was great because your shift was shorter. But then again, I hated working over. I only worked overnights in my career, thank goodness, very, very, very early on.
I didn't. I was lucky.
Did you? I did it. I was hard up for a job, so I took whatever came along, But anyway, getting back to the coffee, Bill, I want to remind people you can get it at rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com. When you get two former disc jockeys together, we're easily distracted. That's why I kind of veered us back on course here. Rightsideshop.com. You can also go to our website, itsanotherday.com, and press a button, and that button will take you to rightsideshop.com. You can try it. It's a medium roast and a medium decaf roast coffee bean. It's delicious. It makes a wonderful cup of coffee, and we recommend that you try it ASAP, if you would, because, you also help us out a little bit. We don't get the whole profits, friends. I'd like to say we do. I'd like to say that we own a plantation, down in Central America. But we don't. No, we don't. So,
not yet.
No. And I wouldn't stand around waiting for it to happen anytime soon.
But you've got to wake up on the right side, and to put it to you clearly, it's the best way to get up in the morning with a fresh cup of right side coffee. It's better than a cold slap in the face.
It's much better than a cold slap in the face, or a swift kick in the dupa. But that's another thing altogether. So. If you
and our coffee does come with a guarantee. If it doesn't wake you up in the morning, we do have someone to come over, slap you in the face, or kick you in the dupa. I really don't want to have to pay him or her.
No. Anyway, you tell it's Monday morning. Hey guys, if you'd come in and sing for us, we'd appreciate it.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Wonderful. Wake up on. I never get sick of that song. Really, do you, Bill?
No, as a matter of fact, I wake up singing it in the morning, actually. And
do
then
you really?
Get myself some right coffee. Yeah, it just reminds me, better get my coffee. Otherwise,
what you're saying is you open your eyes and you sit up in bed and start singing "Wake Up on the Right Side."
Yeah, I don't see Tweety birds or anything like that, but I do hear the song, and then I go down. I stumble down the stairs. I percolate the pot, and then I have my right side coffee. But you did mention something kind of weird, about, the time change thing and everything.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there going, we've dealt with that for years. And, they're talking about, they just need to lock in on one time because your circadian rhythm, your sleep patterns get off. But, I'm starting to think that, one of the things that happened with COVID, people weren't going to work. They were staying home.
Right.
They were sleeping in. Mm-hmm. Their whole sleep cycle and the natural process of your life that you have been indoctrinated to and done your whole life was thrown off guard, and people are sick and not looking as vibrant as they used to. I just wonder if, besides the shot itself, and the virus that was around, if just not the condition of the things that we went through,
The lifestyle change. Yeah.
the lifestyle change,
Yeah.
and you got these yahoos who go, no, I'm used to working at home because I can sleep in, I get my job done, but they're probably miserable and they're not healthy.
It's interesting. People say, "Well, I love it being later, sun out later, at nighttime." But I have to tell you, folks, when you work early in the morning, for example, Bill and I, when we did this show just last week, at this hour of the day, it would be light out. Well, it's not light anymore. Now it's dark again.
Yeah.
And so it gets you coming and going. I agree. Pick one, live with it.
Pick one, live with it, and get back to a routine.
Do you know why we did it, Bill? We did it because back in the days of the Industrial Revolution, when they had little kids working for pennies, they weren't, instead of being in school, they were working in factories. They could. It was safer for them. They could work later and go home in the daylight. It was a tough time. Also, farmers. Apparently, farmers. It was easier for them to get the crop in, with the daylight. So that was the reasoning. But we don't need that anymore.
No, we don't need it anymore. But we do need the routine in our life, and that went away with the Vagawi when we had the virus, and then now you can work at home. Well, it's pretty simple for people, and it's almost like a retirement plan. Some people that sit there and retire, and I hate to say it, but they retire and they go, well, what are you going to do in your retirement? I'm going to sit and
I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to sleep late. And
I'm going to rock in the porch and watch the world go by. And then you go, hey, how's Bob doing on his retirement?
He died.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah, he died. Because you've mentally conditioned your mind to slow down, stop. And so your mind goes, well, I guess we're done in the world, so we can start shutting things down internally. So in other words, I'm saying...
it's funny you should say that, Bill, because I swear that one of the things that keeps me, involved is doing this show. I mean...
Because you have a purpose. You get up. People that live long and prosper, so to speak, when they retire, they don't really retire from life and doing things. They have things to do. And, if you're of working age and working for somebody, get back into the routine, get up and do that 9 to 5. I know you don't like it, but, you're not going to like the outcome of sitting at home and, just watching, boy, my hair just turned gray. Boy, where'd those wrinkles come from? Well, I put on a few extra pounds from sitting around. My heart feels kind of funny. I've got about 4 or 5 friends, 4 actually, that ended up in the past month, that have been sitting on their tuchus, and all of a sudden they've all went in. One of them, had the Widowmaker, and I'm like and way younger than me. Wow. Shouldn't have. Was always healthy, but life changed, and they were bitching about, what's this crap? I got to go back to work. I'm like,
well, look at when we don't live forever. None of us do, but it's better not to, move it along quickly. I mean, you stretch it out as long as you can. I wanted a lot of things to talk about this morning, and I want to get to one. Did you hear what happened over the weekend? There was, they say it was a suicide by cop, or an attempted.
Oh yeah, in front of the White House.
An attempted suicide by cop. But he could have done that in his home state. This guy, but he came down to the White House to do it. I guess it says here, a suspect was shot during an armed confrontation outside the White House. He's been identified. Fox News reportedly said that the guy is 27-year-old Andrew Dawson of Indiana. So supposedly Andrew drove from Indiana to the White House so he could get shot. I mean, if you're going to commit suicide by cop, I would think you probably can do that in Indiana.
Well, I would think so. Now, there's one of two things. Maybe they're covering that, using that as a cover for what he really intended to do, or maybe he went there to do actually that to make some kind of political point.
Well, he went down at a time when the president was at Mar-A-Lago, and there was nobody, just maintenance staff and some Secret Service who were protecting the White House, but the president was gone. And by the way, I saw video footage, which you won't see on the news, of the spot where he was shot. He was not shot, from what I can see. He was not shot. They make it sound like he was right at the fence, and he wasn't.
Right.
He was like a block away, from what I understand, because the video has. I saw them do the washdown of where he got shot. What they do is they bring a fire truck. After they've done the whole investigation and pack everything up, they have a fire truck come by and hose down where the blood was, so people don't have to see it. But before they did that, the guy who was shooting the video showed like 9 different spent shells. So I'm thinking, if they shot this guy with 9 shells, he's still alive from what last I heard. This guy got he walked to the very brink of suicide. He was right there. Because how do you get hit 9 times? Although I would imagine they missed him sometimes. But I don't know, folks. There's a lot of things happening right now that concern me with regard to the president. It's almost like, Sonny Hostin of The View on Friday was encouraging people to go to the streets to demonstrate their dissatisfaction with the president.
Really dumb.
She's an idiot, okay? But this is how the Democrats work, by the way. They don't live with it. Like, we were not happy with what happened in 2020 because we think it was stolen. That's just our opinion, okay? We're not trying to sell you on anything. We're just telling you that a lot of people think there was some funny business in 2020. But I don't remember us going to the street and doing things that caused a problem.
No, now the one thing I don't think we should do is accept narratives that aren't true because, the population vindicated Trump. There has been proof now that this was all fake. Yet I saw a podcaster over the weekend, and he's pro-right, and his thing was the public didn't care that he's a convicted felon. He didn't care that he did this and that, accepting the fact that
he was
he
a
might have
convicted felon. Yeah,
yeah. For the right people, get off that narrative, because if you carry that fake number forward, it's going to come back and bite you in the butt.
Absolutely. The fact of the matter is, it was lawfare. Lawfare. Yes. It was phony crap that was thrown at this man. And I don't know how he went through it. I don't know how, when you think about it, he came out of the other side as normal as he did, because every time he turned around, they were embarrassed, trying to crush him and embarrass him. I would have said, a lesser man would have said, "Oh, to hell with it. I'm not up for this anymore. You can stick it. I'm going to the golf course."
Here's what's going to happen. If we don't sit there and take that narrative out of their hands, they're going to turn it around and shove it up our tuchus.
Yeah.
When they come back and say, well, see, you elected a felon, and see how did that work out for you?
That's true.
Because they're going to sit there all along. They're going to disrupt.
The lie will become the truth, is what you're saying. The lie will become the truth.
Get off that narrative. I don't care how popular your podcast is, how conservative you are. If you're accepting that narrative, then you're probably really not on the right page.
Yeah, you're missing the point. You really are.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this guy was outside. He got shot. I guess this happened on Saturday. They call it an attempted suicide by cop. I think it was if you go down there with a gun and you're going to the White House, I'm sorry, you're going down there to shoot somebody in the White House. I think that they try to undersell these things to discourage other people from coming and doing the same thing. But by the way, I was listening to a former Secret Service agent. I didn't realize this. He said they get one of these about once every week. And the guy said, really? Once every week. Once every week they come to, they get these bulletins, these updates that say, be on the lookout for so-and-so coming from such and such a state. He's armed and has made threats against the president. So the Secret Service are constantly looking for all these people. Go ahead, Bill.
So if we get one every week and we didn't know about it until just now,
right?
This is staging for a story.
Well, you know, the guy who said it was a retired Secret Service guy. He was he was on as a contributor on one of the TV stations. So I don't know, but you know, Bill, it wouldn't surprise me. President Trump, he basically goes about his life as I always see him shaking hands with people, and he hasn't stepped away from the public like you would think he would. And I also, by the way, I heard a very disturbing thing over the weekend. You probably heard this too. J.D. Vance went up to Vermont with his family to get away for some time, and he was out for a walk with his 4-year-old daughter. He was out for a walk with his 4-year-old daughter, and he was harassed by some pro-Hamas people. And apparently they came up and started taunting him and causing him some concern. His way to get around it, he said, was to turn around and confront them and to talk with them, and it calmed things down by him talking. My question is, where the hell was the Secret Service? Even if the guy said, I'm the vice president, I'm going to go for a walk, you guys stay here, everything's cool, everything's fine. I'd say, no, I'm sorry, sir. Our job is to keep an eye on you every time you are out and about. So we'll try to be as discreet about it as possible, but you're not going alone. But apparently he was in a situation where he was alone. You know, you cannot do this with these two people.
Well, just because they got Secret Service doesn't mean every one of them is on page. And that's what's happened with America. It used to be that whether you were left or you were right, if your job was to protect the president, you protected the president. Now they think it is your political patriotic duty. I'm sorry, I didn't vote for the bastard, so I'm going to let him hang and die. And that is what the left is doing. You know, and if I thought we were brothers and sisters, but I guess we're not under the flag, anything. And we're more in line with, the left is more in line with Hamas, where they just went in and killed innocent people and they don't care. You cannot sit there and redeem those people. They have nothing but hate.
Did you see the video, Bill? Did you see the video of what they're doing to Christians in Syria?
I don't want to see it.
It was out over the weekend. Folks, we have a big problem in Syria. I'll tell you why. Do you remember when they attacked an embassy and killed 13 of the, that was in Syria? Mm-hmm. Well, apparently we have 2,000 troops now in Syria. They're sitting ducks. They got to either get more troops in there to give them more support or get them the hell out of there, because they're literally killing Christians. They showed some video on one of the websites I went to. Their only crime was that they were Christians, and
And what faith are they?
Well, they're Muslim, and they beat the living crap out of them.
Yeah, I would be careful if I were of the Muslim faith, because at some point in time, it becomes an eye for an eye, and it doesn't mean, people are
the problem in the Middle East,
but don't go out hunting Christians.
The problem in the Middle East is that they're outnumbered big time. I mean, it's like, 1,000 to 1, so the thing is, the Christians in that area have got to either get out of the country, go to someplace safe, or convert, which is what some people, I guess are doing, but just for the sake of survival.
Converting is not the answer, because they're going to sit there and purify the church.
They'll always say, once a Christian, always a Christian, and it's never going to be safe for you.
They'll purify their church, and they'll be it'll give them all the cause to do it. Look, I don't think you run and hide from anybody, but we've either got to put some troops in there to back it up, say, look, we're going to protect our fold. Now, the question I would have, do these people need to be there? Do they want to be there?
Yeah, well, listen, I don't know.
If there's no reason for us to be there, then just get them out of there. Send in a force to get them out, and that's it. Let Hamas just implode into itself.
Well,
build a wall around it.
well, this is Syria. I don't think it's Hamas, but
Yeah.
it's
Syria.
yeah. I got to tell you, I think that we should get on a. We're not going to benefit with 2,000 troops. We can't stand up to, the masses in Syria with 2,000 men. And based upon what happened last time when we lost those people at the embassy, we didn't support them fast enough. They put a request in. I think Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State then, and she kind of ignored it. Folks, we really and truly have got to rethink our Middle East posture because we're not going to fix everything. Do you know President Trump? Speaking of the Middle East, he sent a letter off to the leader of Iran over the weekend. He said, "Look it. You've got to sit down. We've got to talk about some kind of enduring peace. We've got to talk about these things because it's going to lead to war, and we don't want that." President Trump sounding like the peacemaker. Well, after a day or so, the Ayatollah responded with an up your middle finger to President Trump. I don't think President Trump was surprised by that. I think he probably expected that. But I think he figured he's got to give him a chance. Give him an off-ramp. Just don't go over there. But I do think that the Iranian people want peace. And I think that maybe what Trump was doing was try to offer the Iranian people a chance. And maybe now he's going to put pressure on the leaders of Iran, You were saying, Bill?
And I know the answer. What is it that we have that's of interest to us there?
What is it of interest? What do they have that's of interest to us? Is that what you're saying? I don't know. I mean, they have nuclear weapons that they don't want. We don't want them to have nuclear weapons.
Yeah, how did they get them?
Well, they got them from a lot of nefarious places. They've been developing these things for years. I would think they've already got them. And I would think that they will use them at the appropriate time as far as they're concerned. And I don't think these people are so caught up in hatred, to the Israelis. There's such a disdain. Look what they did. Look what the Hamas did to the poor people of that town back October 7th of 2023.
Right.
Out of nowhere, these people were just having a normal day, going to a musical concert and relaxing at home, and all of a sudden, in one day, they tore that whole community apart and took all those people hostage. And
well, we can't go in and assimilate. If Syria, if there's no, I hate to use the word purpose, but in other words, if we have nothing to gain by being in there, and all we're going to do is create more hate towards us and harm to our people there, then why are we there? Because
I think we're there for intelligence gathering. I think we're there to have a presence because I guess the State Department probably figures that we have to have a place. We have to have some kind of a location where we can gather the information we need to understand what's happening in those areas, and it's so volatile and it changes so quickly that they need people there to gather it. And I think you probably find that there's a core of intelligence people working there surrounded by soldiers who are there to protect them, and that's it, But I don't know, folks, 2,000 people, it may sound like a lot, but it's not a lot compared to, a city full of people, or
100,000 people or a million people. Yeah, you're not going to win in that scenario. And, we might have to reevaluate how we conduct our business that we feel we need to conduct. If it's intelligence, there may be a way to work around that. I don't know. I'm out of school on that. So
getting back to this country domestically, we've got to rethink. I've never seen our political divide so far apart. We have found that instead of disagreeing with the opposition, that there's a hatred between the two parties. It's one thing. We won the election big time. President Trump won the election, and instead of accepting it, the Democrats are pulling tantrums. They're calling for demonstrations in the street, and President Trump thinks that that the left is something. Well, let me see if I can get this. There's something wrong with what the people who are calling for all this stuff. Listen, this is President Trump.
I was surprised at the Democrats' behavior the other night because you delivered among the most diverse, expanded audience, Republicans, Democrats, independents. Yeah. So is it just the Democrat leadership that does not see that?
There's something wrong with them. It's just something, I can't even believe it. They lost an election in a landslide. They were talking about men playing in women's sports. When I looked the other night, I made a speech. The Republicans were going wild, and the Democrats were having their little signs up, little tiny signs. And I said, it's unbelievable. They don't get it. They don't get it now. And I think they're going to end up being a minor party if they keep going like this, because people don't want to hear about these stupid ideas that they have. Transgender for everybody. And again, the men and women's sports, what is that, a 90-10 deal? I don't even know who the 10 would be. But they're fighting for it. And I try and say to myself, because you always like to understand where your opponent is, whether it's in business or anything else, is there something I don't understand?
Bill O'Reilly was on one of the talk shows, one of the podcasts over the weekend, and he thinks, I guess this was the day after the speech last week, so this would have been Wednesday, and he thinks that the Democratic Party is on the verge of collapse. Listen.
Donald Trump last night did what he wanted to do. Number one, he got on the record that his accomplishments in the first 6 weeks were fairly extraordinary, which is true, both good and bad. And number two, he taunted the Democratic Party into making a myriad of mistakes. I think the Democratic Party is on the verge of collapse. And I liken it to 1931, when Herbert Hoover and the Republican Party basically said to the very suffering American people in the Depression, we're not helping you. You got to do it on your own. It's all about self-reliance. We're not going to give you any safety nets. That led to 5 consecutive Democratic wins. 5. Not until Dwight Eisenhower, 20 years later, did the Republicans recover. I see the same scenario for the Democrats. So I wrote a message of the day on BillO'Reilly.com, which I know you read every morning, first thing. It said, hey, didn't the far left, the Elizabeth Warrens, used to be against war? Vietnam, they're against Iraq, Afghanistan, they didn't want to whack Soleimani. Biden didn't even want to get bin Laden. Well, wasn't that their posture? But now, all of a sudden, they want to go in Ukraine and go and go and go and go. What happened? What happened was Trump hatred. And that's what the headline is of the speech last night. When you are hating someone, you lose all perspective. You lose all feeling. You're consumed. And I wrote a book that's going to be out in September called Confronting Evil. And these people who did all these terrible things, they all had one thing in common. They hated. They were just haters across the board. That's what you saw in that chamber last night.
I don't always agree with everything Bill says, but I do think he's right. I think it's hatred. I think they've gone beyond being political. The left just hates Trump. Some people call it Trump derangement syndrome, but and I don't know whether there's ever any coming back from it, Bill. I think that they are consumed with hate. Look at The View. Look at these 3 women on The View. 3 women, 5 women on The View. They just can't help themselves. And they by the way, they're not studied or learned people. These people on The View, my God, it would help them if they read something sometimes.
Right.
It's all.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, the hatred. I don't think there's any coming back with that. But the simple fact is, it's not just Trump. It could be anybody that we have in power saying the same thing. They're going to hate him, even if we came in with somebody that spewed out Democratic.
Yeah, but Bill, there is a persona that Trump has that is uniquely Trump that just sparks them. They can't stand it.
But that was bred into them over a long period of time, and it was hate to not just Trump and centered around Trump, but policies that we happen to agree with. And this has been a long targeted thing. He's just the poster child for everything that we want and the bulk of America wants, and they don't care. They don't want that. They don't want it at all.
Well, I think another candidate would be hard-pressed to generate the hatred that Trump generates. I mean, Trump just walks into a room where there are Democrats, and they can't stand it.
He should step down and let somebody else
No. He's being effective. He's got 77 million people who voted for him. Why would he step down? If anything, they should step away.
Well, they should. They're again. He's the bugler for this charge, but we should have other people ready to step up. I think J.D. Vance is. I think there's other people in line that can do that all have the same feelings, agenda, and way to move forward. But I don't know.
I don't know whether they're there yet. I think Trump has a hammer. He has a bigger hammer. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, they are potential strong candidates. But I don't think they have the legacy.
That scares me, because that means in 4 years, and that's what the Democrats.
No. I didn't say they may have it in 4 years. They don't have it now. They've only been in office.
Well, but we've got to keep him alive. Healthy from a bullet.
Well,
for 4 years.
That worries me too, and I think that he is. We still haven't got an answer on what happened in Butler, PA. We still don't know what the heck is going on. This week, by the way, the president is supposed to get a report on what happened. I guess from the FBI on what happened in Butler. Even he doesn't know what happened.
Well, let me just say something. The fact that he had to wait this long, and last week he said, okay, I'm supposed to get a report next week, means that certain hands have it, and somewhere along the way, somebody's going, that can't be in there, get rid of it. Okay, shred that. They want to.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's going on, just like the Epstein stuff. Now, supposedly somebody copied the files, and they've got it, but they don't have it. They do have it. Well, we might have it. I don't know who has it. Does anybody have it? Because they've had enough time to get rid of it. And I told you, if I were a foul player out there, there would not be a shred of evidence. And if there was somebody that, I took the time to memorize it all, bang.
Hey,
if I were a bad guy.
Representative Tim Burchett agrees with you. Listen.
What the hell's going on with this list, man?
Epstein.
What's going?
I'm glad you did.
Probably the only guy I'm going to ask.
And I think.
What's going on there?
I was on with Geraldo last night, and he says he doesn't think it exists. I don't think it exists anymore. I think they've doctored it, and I don't think we shouldn't trust what comes out. I just think it's they've delayed it, and there was no. And she was way over her skis when she said that it's sitting on my desk. Now, why the heck would she say that? Why would she say that? I mean, she's big dogging it, and it blew up in her face. That was a stupid move.
So apparently a big dump truck full of evidence came into the DOJ after some key firings in the FBI. Do you believe that?
Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay.
It's just like the Kennedy files and the UFO files and RFK and JFK. It's been too long, and all of a sudden, we're going to look at the President Trump starts raising Cain about John F. Kennedy, and all of a sudden they find 14,000 new files just out of the blue. I mean, it's like, what is this? Raiders of the Lost Ark, warehouse that they got this stuff in. I don't know. It's ridiculous. It's a cover-up. It is. The sewer is groaning right now because of Donald J. Trump. I just pray he stays healthy.
Yeah, I pray he stays healthy too. But it's interesting. That just proves to me when a guy like Burchett, who is a representative, who works in the Capitol every day, when he says there's got to be a warehouse somewhere, what he's essentially saying is he's acknowledging there's a deep state out here. There's an underbelly in our government that even a guy like himself, a prominent, U.S. representative, he has no access to. Mm-hmm. We have got, this is what Trump is trying to do with Doge. He figures that if he can pull the money away from these people, it will expose them, and he'll get the deep state. You got to, right now, they've got, did you hear, I got a story here, Bill, on my stack of stuff.
Doge about the $300 million?
Yeah, about the $300 million to children.
Yeah.
Children,
11 years and younger. Loans.
Yeah, 11 years of age and under. Can you believe that?
During COVID, yeah. Well, a lot of kids, they have a paper route or they have, and, to keep that money coming in, they need,
for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, announced it has identified more than $300 million in COVID-era loans that were granted to children. According to DOGE, they've identified that the Small Business Administration granted almost 5,600 loans between 2020 and 2021 for $312 million to borrowers where, at the time of the loan, listed the owner as being 11 years old or younger. The owner of the business, 11 years old or younger. $312 million. How much is that per person? I mean, that's a lot of money.
Well, let me explain something to you. If you're a 16-year-old kid wanted to go get a loan for a car, you better co-sign for it because anything that they sign for by themselves is not valid.
Right. They won't
at all.
They won't sell it to you.
That's right. They can't. And now, and even if the kid walked in with cash, there's got to be a guardian there. So there's no guardianship for this money. It just was thrown out there. I think there's a lot of little avenues, and the Democrats go, that's a drop of the bucket, $300 million. Okay, it is a drop of the bucket, but you take that drop and this drop over here, and 50,000 other drops, and all of a sudden, you got a swimming pool.
Some serious money, as they would say.
So, don't trivialize it, which is what they tend to do. They take everything.
Bill, when I was a young guy, and I was thinking about having a business, I thought at one point of trying to get a small business loan. I'm talking about when I was like 24, 25 years old.
Good luck.
Well, I went out and I got I investigated the process of getting a small business loan. And it was extensive, it was cumbersome, it was not easy to navigate through, and eventually I didn't go in that direction, but it was amazingly difficult. So when you happen to hear that there's $312 million that a bunch of 11-year-old kids and younger got from the SBA, you know it's stealing, it's corruption, fraud. I mean,
the Democrats will go in and they'll find a way to trivialize it, and during that time that they're trivializing, clean this up, will you?
Yeah.
And they'll try to find a way to legitimize it. Which is why you've got to clean out all the snakes in the den in the government.
Yeah.
And that means you're going to fire a lot of people. And that means that there may be some hurt that goes along with this. So do you want Trump to rip off the Band-Aid, or do you just want to go along and just put another Band-Aid on it and let that wound fester over time, and someone else in the next lifetime can handle it?
Do you know of any other opportunity we're going to have to do this? I mean, if Trump doesn't do this now, he's not running for election again. If Trump doesn't do this now, it will never get done. And if it's never done, then it will only get worse. It's got to be the cancer has to be removed now.
in the minds of a Democrat, this is a 4-year surgery process. But if we get into year number 2 and halfway through year number 2 and we haven't gotten that far, that's going to be their campaign point. What a waste of time it was.
Well,
And
already, I mean, we're billions and billions of dollars that have been discovered. They're approaching $1 trillion in discoveries. That's
but
amazing.
the left is covering that up. They're not reporting it, so the people don't know, and they're coming back with their negative and their little negative rants. And we've got to stop that and get the media, in control to where if they're going to report the news, they're a news source, then they got to report the news.
Well,
and all the news, the good news, with what they call the bad news. That would be
that's why
the DOJ did find all.
That's why programs like our program are going to be important down the road. Because
CNN wants to do podcasts now.
Yeah, well, you're not going to. You better be selective about what you're listening to, what you're following, because there's going to be a lot of nonsense thrown at you from a lot of different directions. MSNBC is on life support right now. I don't know whether people realize this or not, but if you watch their programming, their attitude is damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. It's like someone's yelling iceberg and the captain's saying, well, and your point is, I mean, they're just going. They're heading toward the iceberg. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Didn't I just read that MSNBC had a guest on the other day that was claiming that Ukrainians are more American than Americans?
Yes. They get.
Why don't you go move to the
Have you
Ukraine,
listened,
buddy?
Have you found a host on MSNBC who sounds intelligent at all? Every time I listen to one of these NBC hosts, I'm amazed that they have a job. I mean, every time I hear Rachel Maddow talk, that lady, I hope she gets down on her knees every day and thanks God for giving her that money. She's making $20 million a year for doing. Right now, she's doing, I guess, 5 days a week. But after the first 100 days of the presidency, she goes back to 1 day a week. 1 day a week for $20 million a year. Unbelievable. I mean, I don't know about you folks, but I think a heart surgeon should get the $20 million. A brain surgeon should get $20 million maybe. But Rachel Maddow? What the heck does she contribute to society? So, go ahead.
She's a one-note samba, How much do I hate thee? Let me count
the ways, yes.
I hate thee because the sun rose this morning. I hate thee because there's stars in the sky. I hate thee because you say there's a God.
Well,
I hate thee because you say there's only 2 genders. I hate thee because...
Hey, I was listening.
Then she could just repeat that.
I was listening this morning to some guy on one of the talk shows. Said, I just was out with my family. I was wearing my MAGA hat, and I was assaulted. And I thought to myself, I mean, this is where we're at. And by the way, the left thinks it's okay to assault someone with a MAGA hat. It's like, well, he was wearing a MAGA hat. He was making me upset, so I had a right to hit him. It was like the guy who was the guy who was the fault was the guy wearing the hat.
Yeah, last week we talked about there was a Democratic politician that put forth a bill that says it's illegal to defend yourself. So, in other words, they want to make it legal for the left to go out and kick the right's ass.
Oh, but you cannot defend yourself.
You cannot defend yourself.
Right.
But if they say it's okay to go out and kick somebody's ass and they can't defend themselves,
right?
Then I guess we better go have a field day on the left, right? And get a bunch of people together. Oh, we weren't defending ourselves. We were heaping on the hurt. That's legal.
I kind of lost you there, but I think I got. I think I got your point. Hey, speaking of causing a problem, if you've been watching what's happening in New York over the last couple of months, they've had protests at Columbia University and at Barnard College, and these were, by the way, as I was growing up, these were like the upper echelon. These were the institutions of learning. I mean, they were for the higher end of our society. You see, so. But they've been having protests, right? And what's happening is these anti-Jewish factions have been protesting at Barnard, And they've been doing things like taking over buildings or going to Jewish study classes and causing a problem. Well, they arrested the ringleader, and this should come as no surprise to you. The ringleader was here on a visa, and he's coming from Palestine. So,
well, what else is going on?
They're going to send him back. But anybody, by the way, Bill, who looks at these people, they all wear the hijab, the Palestinian, and they cover their face. Some of them cover their eyes, so they don't want to be seen. You know that 90% of them are probably illegals, and they probably aren't students. They're here just to do what they're doing.
What would be funny? You ever watch wrestling? They used to always have the bad guys that would wear the hoods, the mask all over,
masked marble,
and that would be and if you were the good guy, you'd try to pull his mask off.
Right.
Maybe we need to go out to these protesters and corral a few of them and just get them and rip their mask off.
They would arrest you for assault because you touched them. You see.
And you've got judges that may have. Well, let's not even go there. You've got judges that are appointed by Democrats that would get it and say, "I'm sorry, but you did something you shouldn't do," and you would be arrested.
The people who are standing behind the law, the people who are people like, I guess, Mike Waltz from Florida, but you don't get Chuck Schumer doing much of anything. As a matter of fact, you don't hear Chuck Schumer doing anything. Jerry Nadler. Where's the little penguin, Jerry Nadler, with regard to these riots? It's in their city, New York City, right? But they're silent as a church mouse. Nothing out of these guys.
If you hide behind a mask, you're a weasel. Hey, there's something else going on in the New York area, Long Island. Hochul had to declare a state of emergency because of the wildfires.
Do you think that's staged? I do.
Do I think it's natural or the real thing? No,
I'll tell you why I think it's arson.
Yeah,
I worked in New York for several years. I have friends who are in New York. They don't have wildfires. I mean, all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, there's massive wildfires on Long Island.
Yeah,
I don't know. And by the way, did you hear what else happened over the weekend?
Caught on fire. What happened?
They had an earthquake in Southern California.
2 of them.
Yeah.
There was a early one that was like a 4.5, and then the 6.8 hit. And
it's bad enough. These poor people had, an incredibly devastating fire, right? And just as they're recovering from that, the ground starts to shake. Ay.
You've got the San Andreas, which is big, and that was doing some rumblings here a couple of weeks ago, and they said it is on the verge of shifting. But, there are little fizzers that go off, to the left and right, and it goes out maybe to the shorelines. Because this thing centered, I think, right around, a little coastal town. And I'm sitting there going, that's really interesting. When you look at the ground shifting, you got to look at like little locks or something, where something catches and it's holding that thing in place from shifting. But when that rock breaks off or whatever it is, that ledge, that it shifts and moves forward. And I guess there's movement and shifts showing that is breaking free, and there's going to be some major movement now.
Well, they have the right. They have the right senator for that. They have Adam Schiff. Yeah, that's Schiff. Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to throw that in. Shifty Schiff. No. Anyway, it's interesting to see what's happening in our world. Fires on Long Island, fires in North Carolina, South Carolina. We have earthquakes in Southern California, and it's all coincidence, folks. Just keep.
Well, it's climate change. It's all of that stuff.
Yeah, of course it is.
Which is interesting about that. Now, Hegseth, he sat there and what was it that he said? He said something in regards to that the DOD. They don't do this climate change fake stuff,
Yeah, he said we don't do the woke crap. I think is what his.
Yeah, the woke crap.
We train war fighters. I think is what he said.
Yeah, Let me explain something. I was doing some research on a couple of things, and it led to two things. I was doing some research on singularity, for AI, when you see ASI and, stuff like that. But I was looking at climate change stuff. And there was a guy that I was listening to when he was talking about the singularity stuff. And
maybe you can explain for a second, Bill. For some people who don't know what singularity is, could you just give us a little?
Well, we're going to get down to the point where singularity is computers become smarter than mankind.
Right.
So they become smarter than us. And just briefly say, well, it was 90 to 100 years away. Now we're talking about it in this decade. It's going to happen. Now, for computers to do that, they consume a lot of power. And that's the big argument out there. They take 3% of, I think, our power grid right now, and it's going to take a lot more for that. But computers, you'll be able to throw, calculations into or questions into a computer, and it will say, hey, you know what? You go dig the dirt in Idaho, and it's got some minerals in there. Then if you process it this way, it'll be the lightest, strongest metal there is, and you can do this. And here are the schematics. You can go ahead and make it now. I've ran the computations through 1,000,000 times, and it is correct. You don't have to test it. It's ready to go. And
don't they say that they expected to possibly come out with a cure for cancer?
They do.
I've heard them say they expect that AI will be the breakthrough.
Yeah, I mean, whether you believe it or not, and that has what I have questions with that. But one of the guys that was talking about as they developed this, somebody asked the question, goes, and this is an interesting point. Somebody asked the question about, well, do you have models and theories? And he goes, the rule in science is no model or theory is ever right. It's wrong. Everything that we think and do is wrong, but we learn from the mistakes and go forward. Now, I say that because I get to climate change, because I saw an article on climate change where they're going, yeah, we hit that critical point of that 0.05 Celsius temperature when all things are supposed to go to hell. And we hit it in that one part of the ocean that we were measuring, and nothing happened. So it means that our theories and our models were wrong. Global change is based on a theory and a model that was wrong.
Well, does that surprise you? I mean,
No.
I grew up in the 70s when they talked about global cooling.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, well, that doesn't fit our model, global cooling, because it's actually getting warmer. So they said, oh, okay, well, let's just change it. It's global warming, okay? And
in the science community, all models and theories are wrong.
But then they come along and say, well, global warming doesn't work because it's cooling off in some areas. So some people are saying climate change. Let's go on climate change. That's what we'll try to sell. Folks, climate change is called weather. You get it from your local radio and TV stations. That's climate change.
It goes through patterns, and it changes every 7 to 10 years. So you go through a cooling period. It's global cooling, I'm telling you right now. Well, it works in that immediate narrative, but it's not good for the long term, so you should not be making wholesale adjustments because we're going to go into a warming trend.
Well, Bill, I would suggest that some of our friends on the left crack a book sometimes because you might actually hear about things like the glacier age, the ice age, where there were parts of this continent that were covered by a glacier for thousands of years. We have boulders and mountains and mountain ranges that were created by glaciers.
Boulders that move 300 feet or 3,000 feet or 3 miles, Yeah. And they could tell, and they knew that, there are the swaths that are cut through America.
Well, they don't think. I don't want to sound like I'm knocking everybody, but really and truly, I blame this on education. I blame this on what's happened to our schools over the last 25 years at least. They've stopped the reading and the writing and the arithmetic, the earth science. They've stopped all of the things that you need to understand what's happening in your environment. we got to a point where everybody had to pass, and you really didn't have to get it right. If it was close, that was good enough. And we've got a bunch of numbskulls now.
Well, let me ask you a question. You do have certain people that have some knowledge, and we are getting to the point of singularity with artificial intelligence, and we won't have to think anymore. Is America, are people on a wholesale basis around the world going to be dumber?
Well, let me tell you,
under the mushroom of technology and the globalist?
For years, my hobby was writing fiction. I like to write fiction, books, scripts, and stuff. And whatever I got came out of my head. Well, that isn't the case anymore, folks. Nowadays, I can sit down in front of a computer and I can talk to a program like ChatGPT or Grok or one of these other programs, and I can explain what I want, and it can create my story. Now, I don't do that, by the way, because I happen to think there's an impersonal. They don't breathe the life into the story like a human does, and I happen to think that there are producers and people who read these things who can tell when it's been written by a computer. But that's only temporary, because as we progress, as the computers become more sophisticated, they will completely become human as far as their approach. It will become a great replacement. I listen to the radio now, Bill, and I can hear almost every commercial break. I can hear an AI voice, and I think, well, there it goes. Pretty soon you'll have AI disc jockeys. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I saw an AI commercial. It was a deep fake, and actually, the story and the message was good. All right, but they talked about the movie Apocalypse Now, and the AI called it Apocalypse or something like that.
It couldn't pronounce it properly. Yeah,
it couldn't pronounce it properly, and that's because some words that are spelled out, have a certain bit of humanity to it, and it's pronounced different.
Yeah.
I have network stations I do things for that individually, and I'll sit there and I'll look at it and go, that should be pronounced this way, and I go, better call and check.
Didn't we talk off air once? You were telling me about how there was a company that solicited your voice. They were going to pay you a fee, if I remember correctly, to read so many pieces of copy so that they could use your voice as an AI sampler down the road. You essentially, they'd give you a chunk of money now, and then you would end up screwing yourself in the end by eliminating
what they give you is between $5,000 and $50,000, depending on who you were, and we were talking 50, and I'm going like, well, wait a minute, now do I get residuals on that? If they would have given me $50K up front and I would get residuals, I might have looked at it.
Right.
But no, we own your voice. Oh, you own my voice.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't compete against us. Well, there's no deal. That one-time hit would mean nothing to me.
It would essentially be your retirement fee. Because
you get lost and go do something else.
But there are guys who are doing it, Bill. There are guys who are doing it.
They've sold it. Well, but I listened to the voices, and those were probably the guys I wouldn't have hired when I was programming.
Yeah, but they do it. I hear commercials now. They've really lowered the standards of commercial work, but we could talk about that, and we'll do it at another time. Maybe get
a live voice. If you're gonna do a commercial, get a real voice. There are people out there that have gone to the school to sit there and know exactly how to read your copy and make it shine.
I don't know that you heard about this. This is an amazing story. In the ongoing general offensive of the Russian forces, while this dialogue is going on, when Trump's trying to get a peace, this war continuing, and something really interesting happened. Some Russians, this is an interesting story. Did you hear about this? They went through a gas pipeline. It's 5 foot high, the pipeline.
And they crawled into it.
They were wearing breathing apparatus, and because it's deadly, I would imagine. You're going through a pipe that was filled with gas, and what they did is they blew up the pipeline behind the Ukrainian lines. the Russians sent missiles and hit their own pipeline to break open the pipeline so there'd be an opening for them to get out of. And they sent Russian troops from their lines, and the pipeline went through the Ukrainian lines and then came out behind the Ukrainian forces, and they surrounded them, apparently.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening. You know, when I hear President Trump saying we've got to have a peace in the Ukraine, and I hear that fathead, and I'm sorry, folks, I just think Zelensky is corrupt. I mean, I know it's not the popular thing to say, but this is a guy who, you know, he was playing the piano with his penis on television.
What?
Yes, he was. That's what he was doing.
So he really was the pianist.
He was the pianist in more ways than one. And that's what he was doing to entertain people before he was the president of the Ukraine. And he loves to be the tough guy. He came over here, and everybody on the left criticized Trump. But the fact of the matter is he came over here to sign a document, but he was going to tell us what he was going to do when he got here. And that didn't fly with...
No, it did not. It was a dumb move.
Well, here's what Trump said.
He took money out of this country under Biden like candy from a baby. It was so easy with that same attitude. And I just don't think he's grateful. We gave him, in my opinion, $350 billion. Europe is in for $100 billion. We gave him $350 billion, and he's talking about the fact that they have fought, and there's a bravery because somebody has to use the weapons. But without those weapons, don't forget, I was the one that gave him the javelins that was able to knock down all the tanks. Obama gave nothing. Look, if I were president, that would have never happened. You wouldn't have had Russia going into Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the whole situation with Hamas and October 7th would have never happened because Iran was broke. They had no money. They weren't giving it to Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. You would have never had the worst evacuation anyone's ever seen, which is Afghanistan.
I mean, Trump, you may like him or dislike him, but I happen to agree with him. He comes from a position of economic strength. He knows that money is what fuels the wars. And if you don't sit down and talk peace, he's going to take the money away. You know. Other thing that happened over the weekend, I guess the Liberal Party in Canada selected Justin Trudeau's former economic advisor, Mark Carney, as their next leader. He'll be going up, I guess, against the conservative side, which is Poilievre is the guy who Pierre Poilievre. He is the character who, you probably have seen it. He was answering a reporter's question while he was biting into an apple. And he was giving him succinct, intelligent, smart answers. And it pushed the liberal reporter off base. He didn't know how to deal with this guy. But this reports now that, and this to me sounds like the media's warming up the steel. They're saying that Canadians will be voting I guess soon, and this guy, Carney, will be going up against Poilievre, the conservative. And they're saying the country seems to be, recent polls seem to be indicating that it's moving towards the Trudeau side, the liberal side. And I'm thinking, oh, come on. This is the media.
Because of the tariffs. And they're making a deal out of the tariffs. I mean, Moosehead Beer from there.
Yeah.
They said, oh, we've got a presidential package now. You know, it's a pre-tariff package, where you can buy now 1,461, cases of it, a 5-year supply, and it'll be tariff-free. But let me tell you something about tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going 25% tariffs on Canada. It's unfair? Really? It's unfair? Our dairy products, they have a tariff on it, 270%. That's right.
Wait, if I'm a farmer and I want to sell my milk in, if I have a farm in Buffalo and I want to sell my milk in Ontario,
they're saying, screw you, Mr. Farmer, American farmer. We don't like you. And that was before the tariff. You know, the Trump mentioned the 25% tariff, you know. So, you know what? You know, that's what they do. Sausage. So your farmer again, and they're attacking our farmers. 69.9%. Barley seed. Now
for making beer and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's 57.8%. Durum wheat, 49%.
Well, we want to sell our
Bovine-
wheat in Canada. It's 49% tariff.
Yep. Bovine meat is 26.5.
Hey, folks,
Table linen, 18%.
You
So
hear
you
this?
know what?
Hear what he's saying? He's saying that even with the 25%, we're not as bad as they are to us.
Yeah. We're
Amazing.
getting screwed. And if you don't believe it, well, you know what? Go look for yourself. Don't go to MSNBC, CBS, ABC, or whatever. Do a regular,
a deep dive. Yeah.
Deep dive. Yeah, you're going to have to work to get the real results, but you get the results and you're going, well, this ain't fair. So the news saying some of these Canadian left people going, oh, yeah, you want our moose head, you're going to have to bend over for it. You know what? Take your moose head and put it back in a moose.
Yes.
Put
it back in the moose.
He wants his head back.
Yes. Hey, so anyway, it'll be interesting. It's Monday, the beginning of another week. I pray that our president stays healthy and the Secret Service are vigilant. I mean, when I heard that they have at least a threat a week that talks about someone coming to the White House to do them harm, I find that amazing. And it shouldn't be that way, but apparently it is. And we're a country that's lived through assassination and assassination attempts. I was thinking we had Garfield who was killed. We had McKinley. We had who else was there's a whole litany. We have attempts on people like Harry Truman. People don't realize that there was an attempt on Truman's life at the Blair House, and actually one of the murderers, I guess a Secret Service agent, was killed at the Blair House in 1953. They have tried and they've been unsuccessful on occasion. But then we had Kennedy in my lifetime. I couldn't believe that. We had Abraham Lincoln in 1865. Just amazing.
Take the labels out these guys, Democrat, Republican. What were their values?
Well, most of them were on the left. Seriously, most of them were on the left. Really,
on the left. But what were they trying to do? That was
they were trying to. Well, in the case, for example, of John Wilkes Booth, he was trying to extend the war. He was trying to invalidate the peace that had been agreed upon in just that month, just a couple of weeks before.
So conservative, wholesome values were being thrown out the
Sure.
window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peace.
Kennedy.
Yeah.
He's a Democrat, but what was he about?
Who? Kennedy? Well, he was a communist. Lee Harvey Oswald was a communist sympathizer. He lived in Russia for a while with his wife Marina. He was a sympathizer of Cuba. The guy was the guy was a leftist. Although some people think he was a setup. The more we learn, the more we realize he may have been the patsy he said he was. Remember, there was a scene where he was walking out. There was a video of him walking out of the sheriff's office, and he's in cuffs, and he's yelling back to the press, "I'm a patsy. I'm a patsy. I didn't do anything. I'm a patsy." And everybody kind of laughed like, "Oh, no, we got you." There may be more truth to that than, meets the eye.
Yeah. But people that were doing good things, we'll just simplify this, doing good things, were taken out.
Yeah.
You can look at Martin Luther King. You can look at the Kennedys. You can look at Abraham Lincoln. And you go on down the line like a Dion song, and there is a movement out there that I think has been around for a long time.
Bill, there's been a deep state, I think, going back to the beginning of our country. There's been
it's gotten bigger, richer, deeper.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of wondering, we talked about the AI thing. and how where it is, and it's gonna require a lot of power and stuff, but it doesn't require people, or at least as many people. And where are we going with all of this? You know,
Well, we probably will end up trying to convince ourselves that a government run on AI is an effective government. You know, the deep state might think it's a great thing because they may be able to influence AI. You know, they may be able to have AI do things that and make it look like it's normal, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm looking at the clock on the wall. We've just about run out of time. I want to remind people, please, if you would, try our coffee. It's Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. A little bit of the profit goes to help our show, help us to promote it. We don't make a lot from it, friends. I mean, we're not selling the house and moving to a bigger house, but it will help us to promote as we go into our fourth year, and we would like to be bigger. We do know that statistics say that we have about 4 million people a week listening. We've had hundreds of thousands of people listen to the show since we started back in, what was it? We started in 20,
like December
20,
of
2021 or something like that, or 2020 or holy smokes, time flies when you're having fun. But we'd like to grow it to be a bigger, more successful program than it is, and to do that, sometimes you have to promote it. And we have not
so far we've done everything out of our pocket. Look, the coffee, it's a great looking package, but besides that, it really truly is. Roastify is the people that supply our coffee. They make great coffee, and they make it for us, you know, and just it is how we, you know, support the show. It's not the cheapest coffee, but it's not expensive.
Right.
It's a good coffee, and, you know, we don't do the Patreon thing where we're out there sending emails and begging for money
We
all the
may
time.
have to at some point if we don't.
We might have to do that. So, you know, if you're listening to the podcast, all right, you know, not everybody listening is going to go, yeah, you know what, I'm going to take you up on it. But if you're listening to the podcast, I would urge you to say, okay, you know what, I've never contributed a dime to the show. This will be my contribution.
Yeah.
You know, and if you do that, and then the next person picks up the mantle, I mean, I understand if things are tight, they're tight. But, you know, if you could do that, again, you know, there
will be
are
appreciated.
payouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are payouts that are going to happen before anything gets to us. So it's a good thing. And I will tell you this now, this coffee, you can only buy it in the continental United States. But doing the stuff that we do, like the T-shirts and stuff like that and the coffee cups, there are new EU regulations now. Now, the coffee you can't buy overseas, but the T-shirts and the cups, you're maybe not going to be able to buy them soon, too. I mean, it's not us, but it's...
But right now you can't, right?
Until the end of March. At the end of March, things change. You know, we
so
have
do
to
our
have
friends in Germany, France, England, what are they? Spain, Ukraine. Believe it or not, we have a large following of listeners in the Ukraine. God bless them. If you are interested in helping the show out, buy a hat or a mug or something like that. That'll help us too at our store.
Yeah, because there are new EU laws that I don't know what they're in place for or why they are, but they have, you know, we got to have an address somewhere in Europe, which actually that's taken care of. But, you know, there's all kinds of things.
You know,
well, does the paint on the cup meet this standard?
You know what gets me about... Seriously, folks, if you're
in
lefty
stuff,
if you're in,
it's affecting everybody, not just us.
Well, if you're in Europe right now, I ask you one question: who voted for the EU? Nobody voted for the EU. All right, I mean the EU are a bunch of unelected diplomats who are telling you how to live your life. I do applaud England for getting out of it. Brexit, they got out of the EU, but. To my friends in France and Spain and Germany and Denmark and Norway and Sweden, think about it for a second. You got a bunch of unelected bureaucrats telling you what you have to do. Does that make sense to you?
A lot of things online at the end of March, you know, will be to where, you can look at it in Europe and go, I want that, but you'll not be able to order it because of the EU. Now we're jumping through the hoops to do it, but who knows if they don't change it? So I'm saying, if you saw something you wanted, get it. The coffee, please do.
Well,
just
and I have to remind
one time. That'd be great.
to our friends in the United States. Now they can buy it in Canada too, can't they, Bill? And Mexico.
I don't know. I don't know all of the details on that. Because there are territories. Because it is a food product, and coffee is a food product.
Well, to all of our friends in the United States, all right, if you like that wonderful sound of Juan Jose and the Border Crossers, because you're not only helping us, but you're helping them to buy new strings for their guitars, you see. So buy a bag, all right? And you'll continue to hear this.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Ah, yes. You'd hate to see that disappear, don't you? I can see you right now saying, I want their album. But anyway,
Well, it's an album. We can do a digital download, or we can do the album for you, or the CD. But it only has one song on there.
12 tracks.
12 tracks of the same 10-second jingle.
It's a short album. It's a very short album. About 1 minute and 20 seconds, you're done.
Yeah. Probably quicker than that.
That's true. Anyway,
I have a joke for that, but I'm leaving it alone.
I know. Mine always goes to the lowest, I can tell you. Hey, friends, I'm done. I have nothing more to say. I hope you have a great Monday. Keep an eye on the news. A lot of things are happening. Our world is changing almost on a daily basis. Hopefully, it'll be a good week for us all. Until then, Bill, you can wrap it up.
So you're done here. This fork is for you. Until then, we meet again. I'll say hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.